Okay, everybody, we are live for today's show. I have a very, very special guest. I want to welcome Jordan Mack. Also, I just want to kind of make it known that he is here as an individual and is offering some perspectives from as an individual investor, things like that. And he doesn't have any association to Nervos Network in this video. We just wanted to make that clear off the bat. Does that about cover it, Jordan?
Yes, it does. Yes, thank you.
Okay, cool. So, welcome to the show, everyone. I thought it would be kind of fun to have Jordan Mack back on to really kind of talk some current crypto market news. In today's live stream, we'll be talking about this big Ethereum merge, things that might be expected. Maybe what are some consequences that this merge is going to do. Also, we'll get into some Amazon stuff and some BitBoy Crypto calling the bear market because we know everybody loves seeing that. So the first, bear with me one second here. The first thing we'll talk about is the merge coming soon, says the Ethereum developer. Now, as everybody knows, Ethereum has just been delayed and delayed and delayed when it comes to really switching from proof of work over to proof of stake. And I think like everybody is kind of like, yep, sure, you're going to switch everything over this fall. We've had the wool pulled over our eyes before. I don't know, Jordan. What do you think? Do you think they'll get it off and switch this thing over to proof of work or proof of
Well, I
stake?
mean, I think they will eventually. I mean, this is a very big change for their ecosystem, and this is something that Vitalik has been saying for many years would happen. And yeah, every time that he's made a prediction on timelines, it's been way off. And when you're talking about just development in general, judging the amount of time something can take, especially when you're dealing with cutting edge stuff, is one of the most difficult things to do. In some cases it's nearly impossible, right? I think that, of course, the foundation, the Ethereum Foundation, has made every effort to make this happen as fast as possible, but they're taking steps that are necessary in making sure that it goes right. I mean, if they decided at the end of this period coming up in fall that it wasn't ready, I would absolutely back them and saying push it back as long as you need to. The ecosystem cannot afford to have something go wrong with this merge. But ultimately, I do believe that it's going to happen sooner rather than later. I mean, like probably, like I was at the beginning of this year, I was saying it probably would happen this year. Now I'm not quite so sure, but I mean, it will happen. I mean, this is something they've been pushing for quite some time. I mean, and once they do it, I do believe it's going to be successful. But there's probably going to be some things that may happen that will be a little bit turbulent, because they are such a huge ecosystem, and this is a very big change for them. One of the things that happens oftentimes with any kind of hard fork is you'll see the markets react with fear. This has happened in Bitcoin and many other ones too. People just start pulling money, they start selling and pulling it out of exchanges because they don't know what to expect. They're afraid that something might go wrong. We very well could see something like that happen with Ethereum as well.
Yeah, no, definitely. It's going to be interesting to see how this all plays out, the impacts of the market, stuff like that. When I started looking at this article from the Merge, and they're kind of talking about this whole transition. They mention something about the difficulty bombs being released, that which would basically start slowly making ETH blocks harder and harder to mine, which would then freeze up the network for transition to proof of stake. So, in a sense, they will basically stop the entire network. Is that what I'm understanding? To make that switch, is that how that's going to
Yeah,
work?
well, I mean, this the what you got to understand is the difficulty bomb has been a mechanism that's been in place with proof of work for quite some time. It was initially put in to do something. It was basically to force their own hand. As the developers, they realized something would happen negatively if they didn't take action on it. And so in the previous years, their action has been just to delay the bomb from going off, basically. And yes, the ultimate result of this is it freezes up the network. If the difficulty goes up way too high, and miners can no longer find blocks anymore. And we did see actually some effects of that in previous years before they delayed it again. I personally, I don't agree with this direction that they're taking. I understand what they're trying to do. They're trying to use incentives against themselves to force them to make progress. But at the same time, it's obvious that it didn't work too well. All they did was delay it into the future, and then they could do the exact same thing here. If it started causing problems, they'll just simply delay the bomb again. It'll require a fork. It requires, these are all actions that are these are very serious actions too. When anytime you have a hard fork, it has to be taken seriously. It's actually slowing down the developers from working on other things because they're focusing on making this hard fork work properly. So anyway, I don't agree with this action, but this, in the terms of actually pushing it to proof of stake, it's probably something that's kind of necessary. It's a controversial type of thing in their ecosystem, just the move to proof of stake. Miners obviously don't like it. They don't want to have their revenue stream cut off. And so this type of a mechanism does push things in that direction. I just don't agree with it as a means of forcing developers to try to go faster. That's the one part I don't like about it.
Yeah, definitely. And I'm kind of like trying to think of this. I mine crypto. I know you've had a good crypto mining operation in the past, and from a crypto miner perspective, it's going to make it extremely hard to mine these blocks. Do you think that from now until this all goes down, the crypto miners are going to be incentivized to sell the ETH that they mine, or do you think that they will hold on to it and wait to sell? Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, well, it really depends on the type of operation. Like if the larger facilities, they typically tend to act like businesses, in which case they have a limited window in which they can sell, because they have to sell. They have to sell to cover their cost basis. So those will probably be a little bit more on schedule, but I actually expect, because of the sheer size of Ethereum and the amount of miners they have on there, there's probably going to be an exodus of mining from Ethereum earlier rather than later. And I've had actually some miners reach out to me and ask me, do you actually think this is going to happen this year? Because I got to get out of it, right? They got to sell. They see it as something that is basically their exit from mining in general, just because for a while it's going to probably be very, very saturated. I mean, there are a lot of GPU miners on Ethereum. They have to go elsewhere. They're going to flood to every single altcoin. And so everybody who has a higher electricity rate is going to get pushed out for a while. That's also compounded by a market that's largely stagnant right now. Could be a bear market. We're not sure. This is what happens. This is what happens every single cycle. And this could be one of the biggest down cycles in terms of mining that we have ever seen. Now, if you're using a miner that is not using a GPU, it's an ASIC based on a different algorithm, you'll probably be unaffected for the most part by this. And that's one of the beautiful things about having diversity in mining is that these ecosystems can sometimes not be affected by each other in the major downturns like this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's going to be interesting. To see how this all shakes out. Personally, I'm hoping that we'll see some more GPUs on the shelves at the stores for everybody and stuff like that, or even on eBay or something. I need some upgraded stuff personally, but yeah, it'll be interesting to see how many of those continue on with mining and things like that after Ethereum. I could just see people not wanting to mine anything else. I could see them move over to the next best thing, which I don't have pulled up. But yeah, it's interesting stuff to think about. Another topic I want to just kind of touch on from Reuters: Amazon's CEO says not adding cryptocurrency as payment anytime soon, which I thought was kind of interesting because they did go on to say that they might have NFT sales sometime in the future. But this is going to be interesting to see if any of Amazon's competitors like eBay step up and offer crypto as payments, things like that. And I can say that back in the day, I had a friend. He used to buy his Bitcoin off eBay before it was banned or whatever on eBay. And I'm not sure if you still can, but I know for a while there, eBay ended up banning it. But it would be a great opportunity for maybe another competitor to try to one up Amazon. I don't know. I feel like these companies might get taken advantage of by scammers and things like that. Um, I don't know if that's something they're worried about or if it's just some sort of regulatory reasons why they're declining to do this. I don't know what you think about that, but it's kind of
Yeah,
interesting.
I have some thoughts on that. I mean, well, first, it's important to recognize that Amazon's an absolute powerhouse. They've revolutionized the way that we do e-commerce, and this is one that was probably a very long time coming. I personally didn't see it. I remember way back when they were just a bookstore, and all the critics were saying that this is never going to actually be a profitable company. And then they
Mhm.
took over the entire world. I usually every year for the last couple of years I've placed over 100 orders on Amazon just to be delivered to my house. They do a fantastic job, and Jeff Bezos has done a remarkable job in running this company. Even though I realize he's a completely controversial figure, but here's the thing about this: when a company that has revolutionized the business this much is operating extremely efficiently, and cryptocurrency doesn't really fit into that model right now. It's not efficient. It increases costs. It's extremely volatile. It simply isn't something that we are really seeing super great retail adoption, industry wise. We're just not seeing it yet, and that's what I think is the main thing that's going to hold them back from this. Because like when you really think about it, like the margins that they are operating on are going to be smaller. That's how they are competing. Adding cryptocurrency into the mix is not helping with that. That is increasing the margins, increasing the possibility of error. And to us, like just as an industry, to the crypto industry, I think it would of course be great validation someday to actually have Amazon accept it. But in the short run, I don't think it makes that much of a difference, because if they were to accept it tomorrow, all it would be doing would be liquidating immediately to USD, because all of their vendors out there are expecting USD. It's simply too volatile at this point. And Amazon they're not in the they're in the business of facilitating sales. They're not in the business of custodial assets, right? That would be something that would change their entire business model. They're not going to hold it for their retailers. And I think that would actually be something that would be very much required for their retailers to operate properly. The technology is still very difficult, and the people who are just concerned with selling stuff, they don't want to deal with all these wallets and the possibility of getting hacked. It's just not there yet.
Right. Yeah, the great points you just made there. I could see them selling something expensive and then having crypto just drop off the shelf or something. Bitcoin tanks. Now they're underwater due to these slim profit margins. And yeah, you're right. The risk is there, and it could be significant depending on what's going on with the market. You know what? That's interesting. It's going to be interesting to see what happens in the future going forward. Here's another little hidden gem I found from your favorite, BitBoy Crypto. I'm calling this officially a standard bear market at this point. I don't think Bitcoin dips 85% like normal because we didn't get max euphoria. Save this and meme it later. But ETH merge getting pushed back indicates this is going to be a bumpy ride. And man, that is a hot statement made by BitBoy. And we'll check out the charts here in just a second. But, I do think that, there was a little bit of max euphoria. It just didn't happen now. It happened when we went from $4,000 Bitcoin up to, what was it, $65,000 Bitcoin. And then last summer, we had that dreaded summer of crypto. And then last fall, we saw that nice pop back up to what, 68, 69,000. So we kind of have had one heck of a run, to say the least. And I just think that there might not be euphoria right now, but I can certainly remember my YouTube channel was getting over 110,000 views every 28 days during that max euphoria. Now it's getting like 20,000. So I think that it happened. It just isn't right now. And the ETH merge might have some psychological damage to the investors as well. I mean, I don't know what you think about this statement, but yeah, it
Yeah,
isn't.
it's
It isn't.
it's really like I'm kind of unsure with this. Like I like BitBoy quite a bit, but at the same time he is one of the Moon Boys. He plays the hype game for sure. So I'm never
Mhm.
quite sure if he's writing something out of pure interest or belief, or he's actually trying to chase a headline a little bit. I mean, like I when I'm cycling through YouTube, I see his videos, and so I see all of his clickbait headlines, and I know they're clickbait headlines, but he's so good at crafting them. Sometimes I got to click them anyway. I just have to because it's even though I know it's just a clickbait headline. So he's really a master of that but stuff. But as far as this being a bear market, I agree with his sentiments somewhat. We saw a new high, a new all-time high, but it was far below where a lot of people were predicting it. Many people were saying that we would hit 100,000 this year. We didn't hit that this cycle. We also, there was other ones saying even higher, predicting 200, 250,000. It was nowhere near that. So we didn't have that really hysterical move up. And then a crashing, we didn't see the same effect, like an 80, 85, sometimes 90% drop. That was the norm in past bull markets and bear markets. And we haven't seen that.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to piggyback off what you said, the last two, I've studied this Bitcoin chart enough to know that it's about a 50% drop from here to here, and same with right here. I can't help but to notice, there's about 50%, 54, 55%, somewhere in there. That was back in May of 21. And then we've got another 51, 52% drop, which we really haven't recovered from. But it wouldn't surprise me ultimately. We're looking at the weekly chart. If we come down and maybe touch base with this 200 moving average somewhere in there, that's a terrible little drawing there, but something like this possibly, and this would just be a pretty nice corrective wave for the market. It would be the completion of a corrective wave. And when we look at the stochastic RSI, it is indicating that, hey, we might dip a little bit more. Whether or not this goes down to here or we get a nice little V shape recovery out of this, it's anyone's guess at this point. You can see what happened last April, of 21. This thing, oh man, I don't know. It's really tough to speculate. I for one think that at least we are going to come down and test around this $35,000 level within this Fibonacci channel. I think if it loses that $34,000 level, we might be into some trouble here.
Yeah, I mean that's completely reasonable. I mean, it's when you look back at previous charts from previous years and all the cycles that have gone on, it's important to note that every time we had a high, it happened after a low, right? Are a lot of investors, they are waiting. They are actually waiting for something to drop out, the bottom to drop out, so they can buy it with get a much better standing position. I mean, and I'm kind of one of them too. I'm standing on the sidelines here. I haven't been really investing too much recently, and a big part of that is actually because tax day is coming up. Didn't have the money to do it, but I'll be looking to try to make some buys again in the future here. And this is starting to shape up like an opportunity for me. Like if we look at some of the other coins out there, especially CKB, which is one that I'm also investing in. I'm looking for these entry points. I didn't think we would ever see 1 cent again. And I think it's important for me to note that I am under no obligation to actually hold CKB. It's 100% voluntary. And so my investment in this is I'm just like you guys in this respect, that it's speculation about the future. I believe that this is a currency to hold. And so when I'm buying, I'm doing the exact same things that you guys are doing. I'm looking for good entry points. And this is a good entry point. If we see Bitcoin kind of fall out again, that will be kind of like a double down period for me. That's when I will really jump in.
Yeah, absolutely. I can't tell you the amount of conversations I've had with people here. Um, probably the last 2 months, 3 months, really with Bitcoin, um, and how they're saying, "Hey, if Bitcoin goes down to 30,000, that's my entry point, and I'll keep dollar cost averaging down the ladder as low as it goes until it comes back up." I don't know. I think a lot of people are kind of sharing that same thought process, and I'm right alongside with you. I haven't really been, um, I've been buying a little bit, but not as much, because I think when we look back at this at this Bitcoin. Whoops, this is the CKB chart here. When we look back at this Bitcoin chart, like for me, as I like to trade and really try to increase my positions by trading, not necessarily to make money, but when we're seeing somewhat of a bear flag happen on a massive scale weekly chart on Bitcoin, it's tough to go all in. So I don't know. With that said, it is what it is. So it's going to be an interesting few weeks ahead of us, to say the least, and to see where prices lead us. I am long though in the crypto markets. Really, I want to see what the next 5-10 years look like, and we'll look back on these videos and go, "Wow, why they didn't like sell their house, live in that van down by the river to buy as much crypto as they could." I'm hoping that is the conversation people have in the next 5 to 10 years.
Yeah, I mean, I hope so too. I'm very much always I'm more a fundamentalist than I am anything else, and I'm looking at coins specifically to invest in myself that have these technical fundamentals, right? They are showing strong differentiation and a genuine market fit for the future. Maybe not today. If they were already a fit for today, they already would have had their hype cycle, right? That's
Mhm.
not the right time to buy. The time to buy is before they've hit that cycle. So that's why I'm looking at these things. I also hold Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Cardano. I hold all three of those, but I'll share I'm not investing in them anymore. I put in my money a long time ago, and they've gone through this hype cycle that I'm no longer comfortable buying. Right? I wanted to be one of the early buyers, not one of the late buyers. So I'm not putting any money into them. Although Cardano is starting to look a little bit attractive again because I do believe that it has a technological future. All the work that they've done and writing all these papers and everything, there's something there, right? They just haven't hit their stride yet. There's a lot of FUD in their ecosystem right now, and some of it is deserved, to be completely honest. I mean, Charles Hoskinson, I like the guy, but he's really hyping stuff up early, right? And it's not meeting those expectations on the timelines that he was predicting. And so that has a negative effect on the markets. But when you look at it from the long term, it's very positive. So if it keeps falling, I may put some into that too. But Nervos is really the one I'm looking at because it hasn't hit those hype cycles at all. We had that bump from Godwoken, and which kind of faded out. This is just another opportunity. I know we're running out of time here. Before we go, could you pull up just the coin market cap? I'd just like to look at that.
Yeah, absolutely. Bear with me 1 second here. Here we go. Incoming. Get this up. What did you have in mind, Jordan?
Yeah, so I was just looking at this other day, just like what's the total market cap? We're at what is that 1.8 trillion. This is still a really good market cap. I mean, when you look back just a couple of years ago, of course it's not the top, but like this number is good, and it's only going to grow over time. I mean, the only things that I think could really take us back irreversibly is if governments around the world start to ban cryptocurrency, right? This is something that uh, the people who argue that you can't destroy cryptocurrency. They're right in a sense that, yeah, none of it's ever going to completely go away, but you can really annihilate the market cap for a decade or more if you make it illegal everywhere. And this is one of those where I've talked about this several times, just on various places, about how I am concerned. I'm concerned about what regulators are trying to do, because they're going to slow down innovation worldwide. And if you wouldn't mind scrolling down, let's take a look at, go down to around 15. That's actually where one of our favorite coins is, right? Shiba Inu. One of the most bizarre cases of, it's an ERC20, right? This is a coin that doesn't really have much of a purpose. It's got a dog on it, and it's somehow made it into number 15. You can't predict these things. Like I don't know anybody who could have accurately predicted that this coin would be anywhere near the top, right? And it's come down quite a bit, but it's still up there. And this really, to me, this shows the immaturity of our market, as in this has no fundamentals to it. It has no history. It has no adoption. Yet here it is. And look at the total supply there on the right there. That gigantic number. Do you see that? I when I saw this number, I was like, "What is that number?" That was my knee-jerk reaction. It's like, I don't even know what this number is. It's so gigantic. That's the total supply. But then you start counting the commas and stuff, and you realize it's 589 trillion. Now this is a gigantic number, an unfathomably huge number. But when you start looking at the total debt of like the United States, and this is definitely larger than that, it is also one of these gigantic numbers. And then when you look at the total debt of governments around the world, this number, this insane huge number here, is only double of the world debt. Like, it is a realistic number about what the governments have done. So if cryptocurrency does not get banned, this is what the cryptocurrency was designed to solve. This was the original mission of Bitcoin, and it continues to be the mission of every other decentralized cryptocurrency out there, is to give an alternative to the financial system, which is creating a problem that is so gigantic we cannot even visualize it. This number is too big. Our minds cannot wrap around this anymore. This is something that is going to fall apart eventually. Just like every other fiat currency, there's been thousands of them throughout history. They all fail. The same thing is going to eventually happen to the fiat currencies. And where do you want to be? Where do you want to have your money? It should be in assets. You probably want some precious metals, right? We all know Peter Schiff is pumping that every day. He doesn't understand cryptocurrency at all, but I still like the guy. And he's right. Having a little bit of precious metals is probably a good idea too. Diversify a little bit. But ultimately, like, when you look at where I'm putting my money, I'm putting it towards the future of money. That's cryptocurrency.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree with you on that too. Yeah, and just to piggyback what you said, we got like a minute or two left. Really, I was having this conversation with the crypto conversation at the family dining table for our family gathering last weekend. And I went on to tell them how I was working with a crypto foundation now and stuff like that. Anyways, one of them goes, "I just can't support or wrap my head around this fake internet money stuff." And I just was like, dude, in the last year, our own government here in the United States has printed about 42% of the total existing amount of USD, like in the history of USD, has been printed in the last year. I'm trying to figure out how they're not making this connection of fake money being printed to death and fake internet money. I mean, it's being backed by dollars and all sorts of other currencies. And I went on to kind of tell people and make a post about it. And it just goes to show, even though we might have been in crypto for a year or 5 years or 10 years, we are so early still, in my opinion, into this game. We're talking, like you just mentioned, a under $2 trillion market cap. And what's this thing going to look like when it hits 20 trillion or 15 trillion? It's going to be wild. So yeah,
Yeah, yeah. I believe as long as the governments don't get in the way of it, it will hit that probably sooner rather than later. I mean, we see that what's been happening in El Salvador. They've been pushing it through and really carrying the torch worldwide for that. But they've gotten flack from the United States government. The IMF has given them a lot of flack. They don't like this, right? They don't like that somebody might actually succeed with this because it's competing with them on a global level. And we know the governments do not like competition, right? They don't want competition; they want control, and that's something they've gotten used to.
yeah, very much so. Especially when it comes to a lot of these poor countries trying to get that one leg up. That's a threat to a lot of the more established countries, because when another country comes up, another one's got to get knocked off and unfortunately travel down
Yeah,
the totem pole.
it's not an easy situation. I mean, we
Yeah.
look at some of the negatives of that, what's Russia's doing with the Ukraine right now. They're playing power moves right there. Fortunately, Putin is not getting his way, it seems like. It looks like they very well may lose that war. But the reason you got to realize that the United States has not entered is because they really can't politically. Putin has nukes, and if he gets backed into a corner, he very well might use it. Because I don't know. This guy might actually be kind of a madman, but I do think that he has some restraint there, and he's playing a chess game here globally. And so this was one of the more negative headlines that I heard, is when possibly they were using Bitcoin to bypass sanctions. That was like, oh man, not this, right? This is not what I wanted to hear. But ultimately, like this is one of those where that's a negative that happens, but that's part of being free, right? That's part of what we need ultimately, is we need to have nobody being in control of this anymore, because in my mind this is a failed experiment. Every time you put power into somebody's hands, you are putting power that you might not want them to have in the future. They can abuse it. So when you're talking about something as fundamental as money, and money, which many, there's the phrase time is money. That's really all that we have, right? This is your value as an individual. In many cases it's being extracted from you in ways where it's not honestly being done. It's being done through inflation, numbers that are manipulated and everything. And in some cases, it's being used to oppress other people. These sanctions go both ways, right? They can do a lot of good to help, but they can also do a lot of bad. So look, and ultimately, there's one more important thing to mention, which is sanctions is not purely bypassable by any cryptocurrency. That is one aspect of a sanction, right? You if they were trying to sell oil, that oil still comes across the border, right? That's another place that you can cut this off. It's a physical object. Bitcoin doesn't solve this. It doesn't enable you to send oil across the internet. So the arguments that you'll probably see from governments in the future about it bypassing sanctions, they're kind of half-hearted, and make sure that as an individual you start to enter these conversations and you start to correct the narrative, because we know that they're going to push their way if they can.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a good point. It's going to be. I've seen those same headlines that you mentioned, and I'm just going, oh man, I hope the market doesn't react the wrong way to this. But yeah, there's
Yeah,
just it is what it is when it comes down to cryptocurrency and worldwide politics. It'll get knocked down because some country does something stupid, and vice versa, and whatever. But really,
right.
folks, that's all the time we have today. So I would like to thank you again, Jordan, for being here. I truly appreciate all your time and willingness to come on and talk the crypto markets. And I'd love to have you back soon. But everybody, go ahead and follow him on Twitter at Jordan_Mack. I will also pin a comment to link to his Twitter handle. Do you have any other social media that you'd like to pump here, Jordan?
No, not at that time. This time, this is the main place to follow me here on Twitter. Yeah.
Okay. And if you guys are feeling generous, send him on over some pineapple pizza. This looked delicious, by the way. The other
Oh,
day I was like,
they came out very
wow.
well. I was very happy with the way those came out. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean it looks like something that I would buy at some sort of high-end pizzeria or something, man. So I don't know. Well, thanks again, everyone, for being here, and we'll see you guys all on the next video. I don't know if I'll get around to making any price action updates on the YouTube channel today. I might just throw down some charts myself on my Twitter at Real6Fig. So we'll see you guys all on the next video.